hear from Andrea Dalessandro.
Thank you so much. Aren't they terrific? Please give them a well, they had an easier job because the Senate is where all the action was. And I'm so glad I ran into Barb on the elevator because 15 years ago, August 1st, I was the one coming to Green Valley, Santa Rita area and thinking that there were only Republicans here. A few of you go to the Unitarian Church, and on Father's Day, the service started with the leader from the congregation talking about Joe Moody. 15 years ago, Joe Moody was my first mentor here. The office was down in now vacant 116 downstairs, and my then husband Andy said, Andrea, there are Democrats here. So I rushed over, and every Saturday I would come with at least 5 questions for dear Joe Moody. My last memory of him was sitting in one of our offices, wherever DCSRA had space then, during the 2012 campaign. He was pretty nearly blind, and he would be there with a big light and a magnifying glass making calls, so he did see me win the first time. The other couple I would like to honor are the first 2 people who asked me to run, Dick and Audrey Feeney. And Dick was quite a character. We always got great St. Patrick's Day cards from them. And yeah, I hear some people mumbling, I remember that. Well, we called him Two-Hat Dick because what he did, he had a Uncle Sam hat, and if Gabby Giffords was coming to an event, he would have Giffords on his hat. But if she wasn't coming, he'd have Dalessandro. So one day Gabby said, who's a candidate who's lucky enough to have a constituent wear a hat with her name on it? I said, me too. But she didn't know because she never saw the Dalessandro. She only saw the Giffords. So it reminded me of that. And I can tell you, I could talk a half an hour about each of the questions because some of you asked very, very good questions. And I'm going to focus on a couple of things that really kind of have everything they said is important. But I am the senior member on the Senate Judiciary Committee, so I've been there the longest. And Eddie Farnsworth, you know, the guy who became a millionaire from the charter schools, he's the chair. So over my 6 years on the Senate Judiciary Committee, I have seen, especially after Ducey got elected, I have seen a power grab. Not this session, but previously, he expanded. The legislature expanded the Arizona Supreme Court from 5 to 7 members. This was totally unnecessary. It was a power grab, and it's kind of like what we see on the federal. There are a lot of crazy things that we see on the federal, and we see the same thing in Arizona. Just last week, a report, and I estimated, I stood in opposition to it because I said, number one, the courts have not requested it. They don't need it. A report came out just last week saying they didn't hear more cases. They didn't do anything except probably waste about $1 million in taxpayer money because you figure two Supreme Court justices' salary and benefit package, health care, pension, everything probably costs, and then you think of law clerks, secretaries, assistants, and everything else. So we're really vindicated. His power grab this time, because like you hear in Congress, the Senate is advise and consent. So the governor sends nominees to us, and the nominees for a very important commission that you probably never heard of is the Commission on Appellate Court Appointments. And what this committee does, it's a 15-member committee headed by the Chief Justice of the Arizona Supreme Court, who's now a Democrat, but probably after he retires there won't be a Democrat in that position. But they screen candidates for the Arizona Supreme Court. There'll be vacancies because people are retiring. They screen candidates for the Superior Court and for the Appellate Court. But the most impactful is they screen candidates for the Arizona Independent Redistricting Commission, who after the 2020 census will be screening Democrats. They'll be sending 10 Democrats and 10 Republicans, and I think it's only 5 independents. and they'll go through the interviewing process. And then the governor doesn't get to pick them, though. It's the leaders of the Senate and the House, the Democrats and the Republicans, pick the 2 Democrats and the 2 Republicans. And then the people that get on from the Democratic and Republican Party, they get to pick, work with the independent, and the independent is the chair. So this was another power grab. There are 15 members, now there are only 13, and they have to be, and some of the members are lawyers, some of them are non-lawyers, and they have to be from certain counties. Currently, only 13 of the 15 positions are filled, and they are either Republicans or Republican-leaning independents. So they are independents who had been Republican PCs. They only give to Republican candidates. So, I said, as a Democrat in committee, I said, I'm frustrated because there are no Democrats, and Eddie Farnsworth kind of chastised me in a nice way, though. He doesn't get nasty to me, because he has 7 daughters and 1 wife and no sons, so he's nice. And I'm the only woman on the Senate Judiciary Committee. And he said, well, I was frustrated when Napolitano was governor. Well, when Napolitano was governor, she had 7 Republicans and 8 Democrats on the committee. That was the intent of the voter initiative that established the Independent Redistricting Commission. And I'd just like to comment on the guns on campus, because that came before our committee, and the NRA from what actually testified in our committee. But to counter them, we had 2 things. We had a retired teacher who said, support the PTA, not the NRA. And you know what gave me a lot of comfort, because I often felt alone at the legislature in the 7 years I've been there, but Moms Demand Action were there. They were there with their shirts, with us all the time. And the House did kill a bad bill, the Pebble Purge bill, that anyone who hadn't used their Pebble in so many election cycles. So thank you, House for doing that. And when I asked the senator who sponsored it, how many people would that impact? She said, I don't know. Okay, I'm just trying to pick out a couple of high points here. Let me. I did not vote for the drought contingency plan.
I didn't hear all that.
I did not vote for the drought contingency plan. I was not I was an alternate. They would not appoint me to that because I would have been fighting for more conservation. And because I have we have a progressive court, 2 Latino guys and me in the Senate, and the 3 of us voted no, and in the House there was 1 abstention. In Pinal County, most of the agricultural money comes from Big Ag, and I didn't like the thought of them digging deeper wells. Heather asked a question, about wells in East Sahuarita. Well, same thing with that. And I felt that the Big Ag is making big bucks. They could do their own infrastructure. We shouldn't be paying for it. And that did earn me, I'm one of 4 people to get an A+ from the Sierra Club. And when you're leaving, I have some other stuff about my report card. Once a professor, always a professor. We heard about the texting while driving bill. Senator Steve Farley worked his butt off for more than a decade on that bill. Some of the, when Andy Biggs was president of the Senate, God forbid he's in Congress now, but he was against the nanny state. He felt, even though all the other states passed laws about texting while driving. So here you see Steve Farley introducing that bill year after year, not getting credit for it. Also, Katie Hobbs had bills year after year about testing untested rape kits year after year, and it didn't get passed in her name. This year, one of the reasons I ran for public office was against the 4-hour block of English language learners. In spite of the audience here, LD2 is a Latino district. It's what we call a minority-majority district. Most of our constituents are Latino. Most of the kids in the school are Latino. So to put them in a 4-hour block, especially in high school, those of you who know me know I was in addition to being an elementary, community college, and university professor, I also was a high school teacher. How can a kid graduate from high school if he or she is segregated for 4 hours a day, how do you take your math, your science, your STEM classes, so the dropout was a failing program. Well, I sponsored it every year since 2013, and a Republican sponsored it this year, and it passed. So, I want you to make sure you take one of my pens, because these pens write. These write. How many of you have ones for years? Representative Hernandez likes to make fun of me about my pens, but they write. They're big, and they say senator on it. So if I get rid of this bunch, I could get a new bunch that says representative, because I'm termed in the Senate, so I'll be running for the House. Representative Gabaldon is termed in the House, and she'll be running for the Senate, so we have to keep our LD2 team together. Let me talk about something that really was the most heart-wrenching bill that made me really lose sleep. Even though, there was a bill that wanted to extend the statute of limitations for people who had been sexually abused as children. And it was on the calendar, on the agenda for our Judiciary Committee, and it was printed out, and then at the beginning of the committee, Eddie Farnsworth said, it's not going to be heard. And it was the last week to hear bills. Talked to the Attorney General's office, not him, Bernovich and I don't actually get along because of his words added to the solar initiative last year. I've been seen protesting outside of his office in Phoenix, but that's another story. And one very brave Republican senator, Paul Boyer, who has some roots in Tucson. I don't agree with him on very much, maybe 20%, because we do vote a lot of bills unanimously. He had just had a son the month or two before, and he said, I am not going to vote for the budget unless this gets signed by the governor to extend the statute of limitation for someone who was sexually abused as a child. Now, who was against this? Although I go to the Unitarian Church and I'm seen other places, I come from the Catholic tradition, so it was the Catholic Church, the Mormons, and the Boy Scouts who were against this. So Paul Boyer said, I'm not voting for the budget. And then Heather Carter, who worked with us on the loaded guns on campus bills and the phony health centers, Heather Carter said she wouldn't vote for it unless that was passed. And then she was joined by the 13 Democrats. So Paul insisted that the governor actually sign the bill before he voted on the budget. So he signed it that last day, May 28th, and then we were there at night to 1:30 in the morning signing it and everything. But the governor did have an honorary, an honorary signing. He actually signed it, but then they had one, for the press conference and everything. So the governor was there, and then, Paul Boyer, Senator Boyer spoke, Senator Carter spoke, and then a woman who was a world-class athlete spoke, and she, when she was 15, striving to be an Olympian, she was abused by a 35-year-old team member. And she was the only one at the press conference who said, thank you, Governor, because he signed it. Thank you, Heather Carter. Thank you, Paul Boyer. And thank you, Senate Democrats, because we really made a difference. So now I got a pen. I didn't bring it because it doesn't write anymore. It's a Governor Ducey pen, and it doesn't write.
Your pen's right.
I don't buy cheap. We did some good things. We have a teacher shortage, and I believe I'm the only legislator who's taught elementary, high school, community college, and university. We do have a teachers academy, and it's through all three of the universities, and they're also working with the community colleges in every county, so that's really good. We also re-opt for kids care, kind of the kids that aren't as poor that they can get access, but their parents can't afford affordable health care. So thank God we did that, because we're losing millions and millions of dollars. I'm the ranking member, and my friend, when you leave, if you take one of my, because I don't want to talk about, some of my stuff, but I am the ranking member of Senate Education, and we do work with Kate Brophy-McGee. She's talking to me now, but I voted for charter school reform, but it's so entrenched in Arizona, the lobby for the charter schools, that it didn't go far enough. So we tried, we got it through committee, I voted yes, she hugged me, but we still had demands that were unmet, and we couldn't go on. But we have done some good things. Last session, we made it possible for the charter school board to shut down a school if it's in very deep financial trouble. We also, this year, we add 5 new full-time equivalency employees, to monitor it for more accountability. And one of my great sources is the Grand Canyon Institute.org. It is our bipartisan think tank in Arizona, and it examined a lot of things about insider trading and other stuff with charter schools. So Grand Canyon Institute.org, if you look at that. Now, I'm not the oldest woman senator on the Democratic side, but I am the senior one. There were some people who were older than me, hard to believe, but we do have young people, but we did try yet again to get the ERA passed. And I can tell you, what happened is, so I was up first, it was arranged with the speaker, and we had all of our speakers, and so I get up, and there's a half of the audience is for some progressive cause, and the other half are all Republican women. And so I get up and say, my comments will relate to the supporting of the IRA instead of the ERA. So everybody laughed in a nice way. I'm not so sure about some of the Republican women, but I said, I do have to tell you, there was a stock transaction in my Roth IRA this morning, and there really was. What happened? Republican women signed on to it, and one was conveniently absent. Okay, the other voted no. So I believe Representative Hernandez said, they get hell if they don't toe the line. And even the crazy pregnancy centers, some of the really radical Republican women said, "Oh no, we're not going to hear that stupid bill again." Because what happens if they vote with the Democrats, then Kathy Herod put somebody further to the right to primary them and the fundraising. I'm lucky I get to be a clean elections candidate, so I don't owe anybody. Speaking of some things on the right, there was a study committee. We work sometimes closely with Gail Griffin. Last year, I had a bill, and she had a friendly amendment, and it was the only friendly amendment I had seen in the first 6 years. Now, luckily, we have had more friendly amendments, but there's some interesting people in Sonoyta, and Elgin, and Santa Cruz County, and they didn't want to be in Santa Cruz County anymore. They wanted to go to Cochise County. Well, I didn't like that because we represent all of Santa Cruz County, and it would cost a lot of money and have to have several elections and all kinds of drawing lines. And what happens in Sonoyta and Elgin, it's very rural. It's a beautiful part of our legislative district, but they have 137 children in their school. So they pay more school taxes. The voters also very wisely voted for a fire district. And so naturally their fire district is more than our fire district costs. So their taxes are higher. Their county taxes are equivalent. And if they were to leave Santa Cruz County, the produce industry and the people in Tubac and Rio Rico and Nogales would have to pay more property taxes because most of the costs are fixed. The number of county supervisors, the judge, the attorney, and stuff like that. So the Democrats all said no, and 2 Republicans said no, and we killed it. So they never invited me to a meeting. They never called my office. That I've asked my assistant, are you sure? And so they put nasty letters in the paper that aren't true. I would just like to, because I do want to save some time for questions. Eventually I want to retire. Because I really think that the Independent Redistricting Commission did this legislative district for me, because I live smack dab in it, and I had run twice in 2008 and 2010 when it was LD30. Many of you were supporting me then, and it was a very Republican district, and I gave them a run for their money. And after 2010, I said, "Let me go away. Let me take a trip." And then they redistricted LD2 to LD2, which is a Democratic district. And I know that unfortunately, in 2014, Representative Gabaldon and I had a wonderful Latina who works at the U of A, who we wanted to be the representative, and unfortunately, she made it to the Board of Supervisors, and they picked someone else. And even though we're a very Democratic legislative district, a Republican one. And so we didn't want that to happen, so that's why it's really important. I'm a clean elections candidate, and I'll have a paper that has information about that, and also some of my other things, what I need. Everything is going really well, and I just want to end with one thing. In Arizona, whiskey is made for drinking, water is made for fighting. So there are a lot of you want to see, go to one of these rural communities. And I've been there before I was elected in Cochise County when they thought about voluntary monitoring of exempt wells, and a fight would break out. Maybe even a gunfight. So thank you very much. I'd be happy to take your questions. And I do have petitions, so I also have a list of all of you who've signed already, but my friend Pat Sharp, raise your hand, Pat, please. Thank you. So she has some, and I have pens, take the pens. Questions? Questions? Yes?
Are you gonna try and bring the ERA up again?
Of course,
Oh, good.
of course. Yeah, and the House, the House has tried several times, but when we have, you have to understand in the legislature, whether you're in the House or in the Senate, the chair of the committee has the ultimate power if a bill gets on the committee agenda. And so you have, the Republicans just get their self-serving bills on. Oh, I work for a fireworks company. So let's expand the season for fireworks, which is just really, really smart. Oh, I work for this kind of company, or I'm a rancher. Let's get this bill passed. And there's a lot of that. And we just do things to benefit LD2. We don't get rich over any of our bills. That's for sure. Yes.
As a person that does not use a computer much,
Okay.
has no email,
Okay.
I would really like to see more information made public in a newspaper.
Okay. Well, Dan sure does print my opinions whenever I ask him, but it's limited, But I would be, I just want to tell you something. What happened? I sent a letter asking for money for somebody who I don't know, and she wrote me back and she said, I've signed your petition online because I believe everybody has the right to run for office, but I don't know if you're my candidate. What are your positions on this, this, and this? And I wrote her back, and then she said, where do I write the check? How do I write the check out? So it's hard. I don't know. The newspaper might not want to hear my stories. What they might want to hear is that, I didn't get any bills passed, because that's why I applauded for Representative Gabaldon, because it's really hard to get anything passed.
Right.
And so it's difficult in the paper.
You mean I'm gonna have to actually go and buy a computer?
Well, I don't know. They took me, in 2010, they took me kicking and screaming to do Facebook, and now I couldn't live without it, though, you know, that's the best way, you know, to get news. And this woman said, I'm not on Facebook, but it really impacts my husband and my vote, you know. So what I did is I sent her an email, but it had links in it. I'm sorry. But you know what, we'll try, maybe we can make a commitment to put some things in, you know, printed material in the office, because all of you have access to the office. I think I see a hand here, yes.
Well, I was actually going to make a suggestion related to Jim's concern, and I see on your handout that you just passed out the note that, and I've heard this in the past, that unlike Congress, the state legislature does not have an independent constituent services fund for each
Right.
member. So I just point that out as perhaps, you know, depending on the amount of fundraising that can be done, whether there could be mailings mailed
Yeah.
directly to, you know, legislative update mailings in
Right.
paper form mailed to
Right.
certain constituents who,
Right.
who request that, but of course that costs postage and stuff, but I found that really
Thank you.
a creative approach that you have here.
Thank you. That's why they pay me the big bucks. It does cost me more to serve than I make. I've gone through 4 cars. My car I came to Arizona with for 15 years. I had thought it would be my car for the rest of my life. You know, where would I go? I'd go to Green Valley, maybe I'd go to Tucson once in a while. I drive 80,000, my car will be 3 in December. It has 86,000 miles on it. So it's about 30,000, and I get, you know,
I just want to comment more on Jim's comment about those people, those who are don't own a computer. The Joyner Library has very strong computer education and access to the computers there, and they will help. They'll teach you anything you need to know. So I encourage those who are not computer literate, don't want one, don't have one, or you know, the one they had finally dies and they're not going to put another cent into technology. The Joyner Library is the place to go. It's really excellent.
Great information,
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, and I love clean elections, and hardly anybody is clean elections anymore. Those of you who've given to me the $5, on August 1st, you'll be getting a form that's 3/4 filled out, and you could do it online. And my letter there has all the information on it. My biggest need is always for signatures, because I need 432. And because I'm clean, I can file the first business day in January. And then I can get it out of the way, where traditional candidates can't file until later. They have later in the spring. So I like to get it out of the way before we start the legislature. Yes, Lois?
I have one other question,
Sure.
totally different, and this is not only for you, but also
Sure.
for Dan and Roseanne, if you choose to respond. The process for request to speak,
Right.
how effective, in your experience, how effective is that process?
Okay, thank you, Lois. When it was brand new, they used to read out your names, so they would, and I used it from before I was elected, and then they'd say Andrea Dalessandro is for or against this bill. Now what we see is all the names for and against, and we can look at the comments too, but I can't speak to how many legislators it impacts,
Okay.
you know.
That's good.
Yeah. Like to have something?
The request to speak is a,
You don't have a microphone as big as the other two.
question is request to speak, RTS system. And one of the things that I'm glad that you asked this question is because some of our colleagues from across the aisle were very concerned because they thought that we as Democrats were putting fake names, you know, saying, oh, you know, these people. But I have to tell you, some bills like the VRA and other things had hundreds of people that were in support of certain bills. And so I believe it's an effective tool because we as Democrats can sit there and say, through RTS, we have 500 plus people that are in support or against if it's a bad bill. And so continue, please, ladies and gentlemen, continue to do RTS because it does, and it is public record.
Right.
Thank you.
You know, in the budget, there was $500,000 for voter fraud. We've had, if I probably count them on my fingers and toes, the number of voter fraud things that we've had. But on a positive note for LD2, the aviation and technology program at Pima Community College got $15 million. They were initially promised $20 million, but they went back to 15 because those men and women in that program have jobs lined up already because there's a big waiting list. And with the airport being in our district and Davis Montham and the Air National Guard, this is the summary of the Senate, what happened. So I'm hoping that you enjoyed the things I've decided, especially the pen they do.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Okay, let's give them a big hand. And next month,